Don't have a voice in this country. Did you contribute to the budget that is upcoming in the financial year 2026-2027? If you did so, please let us know on the hashtag morning@ntv across the social media platforms as we pick up the conversation of this morning, linking taxes, jobs and youth survival in Uganda. And of course, the bigger picture of a question: do youth's voices actually have a place in Uganda's economic positioning? Uganda remaining one of the youngest economies and countries by and large as we grow into the global economics, with roughly 3/4 of our population right below the age of 30. Now, every year, hundreds of thousands of young Ugandans are actually entering the labor market. They're searching for a job, they're searching for a livelihood, and they're searching for capital, they're searching for opportunity. However, instead of that, they get unemployment. Instead of that, they get underemployed. And instead of that, they get high costs of living. And instead of that, they get shrinking household incomes. So now Parliament, having passed a raft of the 2026 tax amendment bills meant to actually raise more domestic revenue for the next financial year, government is saying that these measures are going to be funding the national priorities and also reducing dependence on borrowing. But critics are saying that some of these taxes could actually hit the young person hardest. And this is going to be seen through informal work, it's going to be seen through startups, it's going to be felt through transport, it's going to be felt through trade and low-income households. So tonight we ask ourselves very fundamental questions. Are the young people truly part of the decision-making tables? Are they being consulted when the country is making its decisions? Well, I'm being joined to my extreme left. I do have Jacklene A, Akampwera, who is a mobiliser for youth affairs, and I've also commented, many of you know her as Madam CEO, but she's supported government programs focusing on economic transformation, scaling and entrepreneurship. It's a pleasure to have you on our table. Good morning to you.
Good morning, dear. Thank you for hosting me.
It's a pleasure to have you. And next to her, we do have Mr. Nelson Agaba, National Youth League Coordinator, and this is for the Alliance for National Transformation, an advocate when it comes to youthful inclusion as well as governance reforms, decent work and accountability, joining us on this table to account for where the youth's voice are in the matters of the economy. Good morning to you.
Good morning. And I'm happy to be here once again.
Okay, so I do have an opening question that should cut across for both of you as people who are part of the young population that in which we're embedding this conversation. Uganda's population being youthful right now, we see a budget that is taking us into the next financial year, being done, written by old institution leaders, and we are asking ourselves as young people, are we decision makers in this equation, or are we simply statistics that they sing about in the speeches that they make? I'll start with you, Jackie.
About that, I believe that at least this government has been fair to the young people. For example, having youth representatives in the parliament, and not only in the parliament, even in the budget. As much as you see old people outside there, but I believe in boardrooms, in rooms where these figures, numbers that are being compiled, by the time you see a finished whole budget, it has some contribution coming from different departments. And they have done their research where they come back to young people and consult them. What is happening? How can we be part of this? And this is done at a youth council level. It is done through our leadership systems where we have women contributing, we have young people contributing. And I think what you're talking about is that it is, of course, tabled, presented by old people. But behind closed doors, we have our young people contributing. So the NRM government or the president of Uganda has done his role to have our youth representative. The question is, are they representing us, or they are at the table and they are quiet? That's my take.
Okay, all right. Nelson, you are one who's very familiar with the structures of this country as well as bringing up youth in the decision-making position so far our country are concerned. Do you see this as a reality on ground, that we are part of the decision-making?
Yeah, thank you. We are a country where the majority of the population is young people. And we know that per the Constitution, government and the law should be for the interest of the people. And when it comes to policies, so when policies do not work for the majority, who are young people in this country as per the UBOS statistics, then we ask, because policies, especially tax policies, are and employment are not separate. So, and when you get one wrong, you get both out of the equation. So we ask, so if the policies are good, they should be reflected, the reality check, on how they impact the majority of the population, which is young people in this case. So that is the equation balance from the legal perspective.
Okay. Speaking of equation balance, let's look into that. Government saying that young people are central to its program. We see the parish development model that has percentages for young people. We see Myoga that gives percentages to young people, and different other, skilling opportunities that government has and initiatives that government has come up with. We want to find out from you, why are we seeing many young people still presenting the front that they are invisible in these programs? They are economically left out through these programs.
Well, when you say young people say that they are not in the equation, I understand their frustration. I have been young, and I think even Mr. Agaba here and you would agree, we are young, we are still young, we are in the system. But I want you to know that we have the impacts of COVID, okay, that led to the layoffs of many people, different age groups, okay? So we have people with experience, we have people with masters, we have people who are out there and had it all, and they were laid off. And these are the people that are competing with the young people, okay? So now we have the entire country, and not only in Uganda, by the way, I can put it on a global level, that you have a CEO who was laid off, and this CEO is willing to step down and apply for a job that a young person should be taking up. And because of their confidence, because of their experience, because of their exposure, because of their network, they have more access to these jobs than our young people, because you're just fresh from the university. Which experience do you have? So this is not just a national issue. And for them crying out, they are right. But let's also look at the government projects, okay? We have the existing government projects. And I agree with the young people when they say that, okay, we are not being heard. Most of us grew up thinking, everyone in Africa thought that from school you would be employed. So it's a mentality issue, mindset change that we need here. That all of us think that we have to be employed because our great-grandparents were employed on shambas, and from shambas, even when you had one degree in the entire district, you expected them to be doctors, you expected them, professional jobs. No one thought about entrepreneurship. No one thought about science to discover, to solve problems. So it's just recently that the government and the president thought and said, no, we need to start up skilling projects for the young people, the carpentry, the way we see our saloon. Because between me and you, we agree that if you look at the braids and wigs and the installation, it's costly. If you look at how much we are charged. But when you tell a young person that start a salon, they're like, no, I would rather sit in an office with an AC. And then you're like, but how will you get money? You need to step up and find a way to survive until you can afford that life that you're thinking about. So for them, they are thinking about of getting a job where you have an extra car, where you have your airtime being paid, you have a PA. But we're like, why can't you start up your own jobs? Why can't you start up your own businesses and employ people? So employ yourself. And that's where the government comes in with the presidential skilling project, which has been helping most young people to to get these skills and start up their own. And on top of that, even when you get a skill, someone would ask me, after getting a skill, what do I do with it? Like you've had the PDM, where you have some capital to start with, you get your 1 million. Go away with it, find something to do with it. We have also grants. We have science, technology, and innovation, which actually funds proposals. They do not fund existing businesses only, they also fund proposals. Come up with a brilliant proposal, submit it, and then it will be funded. But that's not only that. We have NSSF grants coming up, and they fund actually small businesses. You have to just show them that this business is working. All I need is money. And it is fair. Okay. I know most of us young people tend to think these are just projects for the connected ones. No, it's not true. Because I can tell you, I have seen young people fail to read newspapers. Right now, as we are talking, there are some people that are not watching this program, but they will rush to social media to cry out. The way you were saying it, they are crying out more on social media. But when you ask them, were you watching news last night? No. But NTV was showing Grow Project. Did you try to find out what it is all about? No, I think that is for the connected people. Did you, as a person, apply and fail?
Nelson, why do the young people feel that there's that mindset that is growing amidst them? One, that they should be connected in order to leap into these opportunities. Two, she has mentioned the fact that, yes, there are existing programs that can actually coexist. For example, the Skilling Hub can churn out those that have been given skills, and then they can get starting capital from the PDM, even though some skills require more than 1 million as startup capital.
Yeah, in the beginning, I mentioned that our country and countries are governed, whatever we see is the reality of especially the tax policy. I appreciate there is these initiatives, the youth livelihood and all that. The PDM money, 30% to be designated to young people. But the reality check is with the statistics, as you mentioned in the beginning. When you look at our domestic revenue collection, 50% is only contributed by 320 companies. 50% of our domestic revenue collection. Now, those are the giants. 20% is only contributed by 1,200 companies. And those are companies, the first ones are those that have annual turnover of 50 billion and above. Then we have those of 20 billion to 50 billion and above. Those are the 1,200 companies. When you look at 15% of our domestic revenue collection is only contributed by 4,000 companies. Those are companies that have the annual turnover of 1 billion to 20 billion. Now, when you look at companies that earn between 150 million to 1 billion annually turnover, that is 40,000 companies. And most of those are now schools, factories, hotels, and all that. And where do young people fall in business? They are between, the 50 million to 150 million turnover when you look at those companies. Now, the 400,000. And we have other companies that literally survive. Those are companies that earn not more than 10 million annually. Their annual turnover not more than 10 million. And that is 1,800,000 companies. They are just surviving. So on one hand, you're having a youth livelihood program that gives money, and then the tax policy here taxes it before it even takes, somebody makes a profit out of it. So we need to align the tax policy, because I said tax policy equal to job policy. So where you have these two things wrong, you are crippling the economy. So most of the young people, why they normally say, why do we have high rate of businesses, but started, but they don't reach their 18th or 24th birthday? The reason is simple, because of the tax regime. So in other countries, what they do, models that have proven to work in Rwanda, in Singapore, is that you incubate startups, you incubate young companies, that you give them what we call an exemption of about 3 years, so that now you don't tax the seed, you don't tax capital, you start to tax what we call profit. So we need to have those things aligned. It's not about how much government puts to the people and again takes away. When you look at, I talked of the many 1.8 something, companies that literally contribute 1%. So the country here, this is the reality check, statistics are there. The country should be thinking of how many people are just in the surviving mode. The 1.8 million companies that only on the revenue correction contribute 1%. The other tier bracket that falls contributes 3%. So how do you graduate that instead of having 320 companies shouldering the 50% of the other 45 million people, graduate them, add them, let them be the 1,200 companies. You get how now income, because in growing what we call growing the tax base, you grow it by creating more wealth. So you tax wealth, you don't tax poverty. So here you're taxing the poor more. And why? Because there is more tax in what we call the indirect tax policy, on VAT, on withholding, those indirect tax taxes. And that is the problem. You're taxing more on consumption. And in context purposes, here is what it means, that these giant companies like MTN and banks, they are just remitting tools. For example, people don't know that VAT is paid by a final consumer, is not borne by a manufacturer. A manufacturer is a medium to remit taxes from the final consumer to government. So all those contexts need to be read, researched, analyzed together, and then make an informed decision of how do we grow wealth, because that's how you do it.
So on that note, looking to what Parliament approved for the next financial year, excise and consumption measures, cooking oil levy approved 500 shillings per litre, and this is reciting reports that during some debate stages you get to look at that figure. When you look at cooking oil itself, this is one of the products that has propelled young people to get into small businesses, chapati business.
And if you may allow just a second.
Before you come in,
yes.
There's the 300 Ugandan shillings per kilogram that has been approved in a recent report. There's also increments on cement, adhesive and grout. This is affecting the construction industry. You do have this 750 shillings per 50 kilogram bag of cement or adhesive. Then you also do have imported denatured spirits having a percentage in there, you come to trade, where you do have 30% environmental levy on imported second-hand clothes. This is what can be afforded by a young person over the, the dress that is 350,000 Ugandan shillings. They can only afford a dress of 15,000 Ugandan shillings, which should ideally be a second-hand cloth. Look at transport fast registration fee for motorcycles. So many young people post-COVID-19 picked up motorcycles as a way of living. And so when you have an increment in registration from 200,000 Ugandan shillings to 500,000 Ugandan shillings, are you truly speaking to the youth's needs and gaps right there? When you look to the business, the threshold on VAT that you've mentioned of, there's the compliance in tax administration and so many others. There's the fuel cost that will come with affecting production of those that are, trying to be innovative in different spaces. This is where I want to turn to you, Jackie. Do these tax increments, these proposed tax increments, actually speak into improving the livelihood of a youth who would then meaningfully contribute to the country's economic growth?
Well, to begin with, I think I'm glad that you had to break it down. Most people, Mr. Agaba here was saying taxes, income, VAT, and taxes, policies. I think we need to understand which kind of taxes are affecting the youth. Because if we have a turnover, if your business is not on a turnover of 150 million, you do not qualify to register for VAT. You don't, okay? And if you're a business, you have invested, I think it's about 500 million, below 500 million, you do not qualify to file your income tax for about 3 years.
But that's a temporary waiver.
Hold on, that's for 3 years. And by 3 years, a business, that's why he was saying the businesses do not qualify. Do not see their third birthday. I am a business person before I come to NRM as a mobiliser. And I have started a small business and it exists. And I know I have walked this journey. The taxes that you're talking about, when we cross to the agriculture sector, they are not there. They do not exist. When you say we are taxing oil, we are taxing salt, we are taxing extra, I think let's also ask ourselves, if you have said that the taxes are the one crippling, okay, the existence of businesses, of young people, correct? Is that correct, Mr. Agaba?
Go ahead, yes.
Perfect. Now, the question is, which exact taxes are we talking about? Because as far as I'm concerned, all these small businesses, most of them do not. But let's look at, for example, where you were saying the raw...
They pay tax. They pay.
No,
tax.
you say which tax? It's not all about us talking about taxes. We have so many taxes.
See, on supply, VAT is a tax on a supply.
You must state, because if I'm buying my matoke, hold on, if I'm a small business restaurant and I'm buying my matoke from the farmer, do I pay VAT in my small restaurant? No,
but you're using cooking oil. You're using...
Hold on. I want us to go step by step.
Yeah. So you see, maybe if you may allow.
No, let me submit and then you will handle. Now, when we look at what businesses, which actual businesses that are being that are employing the young people, actually, let it be carpentry, let it be restaurants, let it be maybe the boutiques and so forth. If you have goods coming into the country, I think that's where we have taxes coming in, okay? If you're importing your goods, you will have to face the taxes. But if you are the young people, like I was saying, skilling, where we have you're into carpentry, you're into what, I think you should be able to run that business for 3 years without paying these taxes. And you just have to apply and you get exempted.
Okay.
But if you do not do so, and you try to manipulate the system.
So, Jackie, your argument is to the fact that some of these taxes don't affect some opportunities and entries directly.
They do not.
I do agree with you. So now for the part where some of these taxes do affect directly a young person, talk into those.
Yeah, well, I must say that at a certain point, this country needs some money to run, and it will have to. So if we are young people, we have also other revenues. If you are not in the, let me give you an example. If you're not in the league of existing with the giants, then do not call yourself a giant. Find businesses where you can survive. But you cannot enter the shallow waters and complain, oh, they are shallow. No. Then find the giants and swim with them. For example, like I was stating, there are government projects. You're saying you do not have enough money to start up a business, okay? Now you have started up a business. It's almost 1 billion, okay? The turnover is 1 billion. And you're saying, I'm a young person, so I do not qualify to pay. Because I expect the kind of young people that are running these businesses, we should be between 50 million to 100 million. I can say turnover, they're small, the ones that you're calling small businesses that young people are running. But the moment you exceed that, then that means that you, as much as you're a young person, you have entered the league where you must support this country so that it has some revenue to run it. We need health centers. Later on, we will complain and say, we do not have money to run this country. So it's not a problem of taxes, and where we have issues of taxes, that's why we have representatives. That's why we have these discussions, and thanks to NTV for bringing young people to add a voice on this. That's why I call the government, step back and ask yourself, if there is a young person who is importing cosmetics, which plan do you have for them? If you have a young person who is a chef and is running a small restaurant, there is the cooking oil element, there is a what? Is there an exemption? If you have a young person who is maybe importing fertilizers and so forth, then let's cross to agriculture.
All right, and unfortunately exemptions are only being seen for those that are in, a higher income category than the young person that you're talking about. This brings us and propels us into the question of job creation, because unemployment is still an issue that, we have to deal with at the end of the day. And some of these tax increments are now chasing away a number of young people who had intended to start business or who even started business, but because of these increments, they're feeling the pressure and probably having to be cast in a position of making a decision. Should I continue this business or shouldn't I? I can't go into carpentry, because to go into carpentry means that I have to first invest in a year or two to first get the skill and then be able to get into the carpentry sector that is not receiving these taxes directly. This is where I want to bring back to you, Nelson. Talking about aligning the tax policy and job policy. The informal sector, should we tax it or should we grow it first?
Yeah.
And if whichever you answer, how do we do it? What are the actionable steps to make us get there?
Exactly. Most of the informal sector fall within the micro tier, according to the tier of the URA.
Yeah.
And these, when you look at, again, the annual turnover, we are talking of 10 million to 150 million.
True.
These are 400,000 companies, registered companies. And what is their contribution? Because you see, the contribution is the measure of performance, is a measure indicator of performance. These form 3%, contribute 3% of the domestic revenue correction. So you see, the context of what government does, of the environment, is measured on, the result, on the reality end of things. So when it comes to, and these ones are saloons, shops and so many other things. And you see, we have different scales in taxation and how they can be aligned to grow, because I also said in the beginning that taxation, you don't grow the tax base by taxing the poor or by taxing, people who have no income. You create an environment for them to grow wealth, to have more money, and then you tax. For example, you well know that the payee list is 2.5 million. People who pay as you earn, 2.5 million. But we are having, statistically, about 24 million people who qualify to be in the working group. So one can argue and say, yeah, most of them are into informal employment and all that. But what is what is the formal employment bracket? What is their contribution to the revenue collection. So for me, here are my key gaps that need to be filled. Let URA, for example, be more of a service to the people than being a policeman. That's one. That, you know, there are these incentives that come with being formal. Because you all know, for example, that many people, these young people who do gigs, those who are watching,
the gig economy,
they normally deduct their 6% withholding tax. And for me, withholding tax is an advance that you only claim when you file returns. Now, and statistically, collection, we collect withholding, the recent collection was 1.1 trillion collection of withholding tax. And out of that, it was only 660 billion that was claimed. So we are having 40% of the withholding tax not claimed by those that would claim. So if they claim that, it would a little bit lessen the burden in their filing of returns in terms of, you know, tax liability. So all this needed to be there. Access, for example, we needed to do ring fencing of some bids, of some opportunities for those that are within that are compliant. Then the other aspect is to reduce the compliance cost. A saloon in Nigeria, a saloon in Ntinda needs to hire an accountant to balance the books. The accountant is also taking away from, you know, the taxpayer. From the taxpayer. So the compliance gap, you need to have the system and so many other things. Then we also have the aspect of multiple taxation. Before I say anything, you must have paid KCCA, you must have paid, you know, garbage collection, you must have paid, you know, all those licensing and so many other things. So you have about 4 taxes before you even breathe as a company, as a young startup. Then that's why we need to fast track the startup law that gives much of the incubation, to give, you know, that gives much more of incentives to tag money within the UDB, Uganda Development Bank, that makes easy for young and startup companies to access credit at a lower rate, interest rate.
In closing?
And in all that, the moment those few things that I've mentioned are done, then you help businesses to live longer, to create more wealth, and the more they graduate to different brackets or tiers of the economic, as per the URA, then you have more money collected or paid in taxes.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Nelson Agaba. Jackie, in terms of recommendations, what would be some of those recommendations you'd like to be paid attention to in order to enable that at least as many young people in this economy as possible can meaningfully contribute to our economic growth?
One, I would encourage young people to open up their minds to already existing opportunities. For example, I see decorators, okay, and photographers, and I usually challenge people in decision-making positions that I know a decorator who earns 500 million and is nowhere, and is a young person. You also know how much we pay for decoration, and these people are nowhere. It's totally cash. And you're a young person. Not that I'm saying take advantage of the system, but if it is existing and someone is willing to pay you as an interior designer, go for it, okay? Go for those existing jobs that were not there by then, but are here. Number 2 is that I think it also has to do with the attitude. What kind of attitude do we have? I have been in a position where I employ young people, and I can tell you, sometimes I ask myself, the cost of hiring a young person one, they are not available. Number two, they are some, not all of them, they are not available to do the job, and they are complaining, and their expectations are very high, and someone will tell you you're exploiting them, but you're a small business. I have had people say, me, I can't grow with a company. You know, someone is telling you, no, I don't want to grow with a company. And he says, compliance. I have to pay your NSSF. I'm a small business. I have to pay your NSSF. I have to pay your payee. So you can imagine, after all that, the young person gaining experience runs away from you. So I think as young people, we must be ready to work and be patient with these small businesses, even when they call on us, because the competition at the top, you're competing with someone with masters. Someone said that now we have masters people all over the place, yet long time ago, you would have a degree and competing with a diploma and certificate. So the competition is steep, so we need to up our game. Now, to the government, on the government side, we have many projects that are running. I know we are politicking everything, but at least sometimes we need to go out there and find out, are these projects really working? Are they for us? Let me apply and fail. I met a young man here, and I think just when we were at the reception, and this young man stood against his father during the LC3 elections, and he's called Amos. I looked at him and I asked him, how did you stand against your father during the campaigns as LC3? And this was my takeaway. He said, I thought I would do a better job than him. Now, some of us have failed to even apply for jobs. Not that I know that the competition is not steep, but someone says, no, I can't apply for the job. You understand what I'm saying? So go out there, apply for these jobs. Be the job creators. If you can do a salon, if you can be a creative, if you can do content, if you can do what, find something to do and let the government help you. To the government about taxes, we have youth representatives, we have people outside there. Please represent us. Be in the system. Talk about it. If something is not favoring the young people, then get out and speak about it.
Thank you so much, Jackie Arinda, representing the NRM, and ANT being represented by Nelson Agaba. Thank you so much for your voices on this topic. I believe that it has enlightened you and tickled you at the same time as a young person to actually awaken your mind to the realities on ground. Because as a country, the young people are not waiting for the future. Their future is already here. The young person is a taxpayer. The young person is the voter. The young person is the consumer. The young person is the workforce that we are talking about. So if the economic policy keeps missing them, then we're creating a ripple effect for the national asset. It will tend to frustrate us in the near future if we don't hold it with caution. So tonight's real question is not whether youth have a voice. It is whether the power is ready to hear the youth's voice. That brings us to the end of this conversation, but by and large, the end of Monday's edition of Morning at NTV. Thank you so much for having been with us. Turn to our social media platforms for newsworthy developments across the day on the hashtag NTV News. Coming up next, Mwasuze Mutia. I am Priscilla Regina Nelwoga.